Personal ad.
Personal allowance.
Personal allowance.
Personal assistant.
Personal assistant.
Personal column.
Personal column.
Personal communicator.
Personal communicator.
Personal computer.
Personal computer.
Personal data organizer.
Personal data organizer.
Personal digital assistant.
Personal digital assistant.
Personal electronic device.
Personal electronic device.
Personal exemption.
Personal exemption.
Personal identification number.
Personal identification number.
Personality.
Personality.
Despite their different personalities, they became the best of friends. Unfortunately, the illness can lead to changes in personality.
One of the most well-liked TV personalities.
He's honest, but he lacks personality.
He was a dynamic personality in the business world.
It's partly the architecture which gives the town its personality.
Personality cult.
Personality cult.
Personalize.
Personalize.
Why not do something to personalize your office?
All the products can be personalized to the client's exact requirements.
The mass media's tendency to personalize politics.
A personalized number plate.
Personally.
Personally.
Personally, I don't think much of the idea.
I personally think it's too cold to go out.
The managing director wrote personally to thank me.
All important work is personally approved by him.
I'll see to it personally. I'm holding you personally responsible for this mess. She clearly blamed me personally for the difficulties she'd been having. I don't know her personally, but I like her work.
Don't take it personally. She's rude to everyone.
Members of the Senate rarely attack each other personally.
She had a lasting impact on his life, both personally and professionally.
Personal organizer.
Personal organizer.
Personal pronoun.
Personal pronoun.
Personals.
Personals.
Personal shopper.
Personal shopper.
Personal space.
Personal space.
She objected to this invasion of her personal space.
Personal stereo.
Personal stereo.
Personal trainer.
Personal trainer.
Persona non grata.
Persona non grata.
Personification.
Personification.
He became the personification of the financial excess of the 1980s.
The personification of rivers in 5th century art.
Personify.
Personify.
Carter personifies the values of self-reliance and hard work. Carter personifies the values of self-reliance and hard work. Carter personifies the values of self-reliance and hard work.
Bertha was kindness personified.
Time is often personified as an old man.
Personnel.
Personnel.
Senior military personnel.
Doctors and other medical personnel.
All personnel are to receive security badges.
A copy should then be sent to personnel for our files.
The personnel department. Personnel carrier.
Personnel carrier.
Person to person.
Person to person.
Email provides a way of sending person-to-person messages almost instantaneously.
Perspective.
Perspective.
His father's death gave him a whole new perspective on life. The novel is written from a child's perspective.
We have to look at everything from an international perspective.
A much-needed historical perspective.
Our work in Uganda and Romania adds a wider perspective.
I think Viv's lost all sense of perspective.
The figures have to be put into perspective.
The artist's use of perspective.
Perspex. Perspex.
Perspiration.
Perspiration.
He wiped the beads of perspiration from his brow.
Perspire.
Perspire.
Willie was perspiring heavily.
Persuade.
Persuade.
I finally managed to persuade her to go out for a drink with me.
Don't let yourself be persuaded into buying things you don't want.
I'm trying to persuade your dad to buy some shares.
Leo wouldn't agree, despite our efforts to persuade him. He took a lot of persuading to come out of retirement.
He was fairly easily persuaded.
I am not persuaded by these arguments.
She'll only take me back if I can persuade her that I've changed.
McFadden must persuade the jury of her innocence.
Persuasion.
Persuasion.
After a little gentle persuasion, Debbie agreed to let us in.
It had taken a great deal of persuasion to get him to accept.
She used all her powers of persuasion to convince Tilly that it was the right thing to do.
We need people with talent, whatever their political persuasions.
Politicians of all persuasions.
An ancient bed of the iron persuasion.
Persuasive.
Persuasive.
Trevor can be very persuasive.
A persuasive argument against capital punishment.
Pert.
P-E-R-T. Angie gave him one of her pert little glances.
A pert bottom.
Pertain.
Pertain.
Legislation pertaining to employment rights.
Pertinacious.
Pertinacious.
Pertinent.
Pertinent.
He asked me a lot of very pertinent questions.
The last point is particularly pertinent to today's discussion.
Perturbation.
Perturbation.
Climatic perturbations.
Perturbed.
Perturbed.
William looked a little perturbed. He didn't seem perturbed by the noises outside.
He was perturbed that she didn't look happy.
My unexpected arrival didn't perturb him in the least.
Peruse.
Peruse.
She leant forward to peruse the document more closely.
Perv.
Perv.
Pervade.
Pervade.
A spirit of hopelessness pervaded the country.
Pervasive.
Pervasive.
The pervasive influence of television.
The all-pervasive mood of apathy.
Perverse.
Perverse.
He gets perverse satisfaction from embarrassing people.
Perversely, she was irritated by his kindness. Perversion.
Perversion.
A perversion of the true meaning of democracy.
Perversity.
Perversity.
Max refused the money out of sheer perversity.
Pervert. Pervert.
Genetic scientists are often accused of perverting nature. TV violence perverts the minds of young children.
Perverted.
Perverted.
He derives a perverted pleasure from hurting other people.
The perverted logic of terrorism.
Peseta.
Peseta.
Pesky.
Pesky.
Those pesky kids.
Peso.
Peso.
Pessary. Pessary.
Pessimism.
Pessimism.
There is deep pessimism about the future.
Pessimist.
Pessimist.
Don't be such a pessimist.
Pessimistic.
Pessimistic.
a pessimistic view of life.
He remains deeply pessimistic about the peace process.
Pest.
Pest.
A chemical used in pest control.
Pester.
Pester.
She'd been pestered by reporters for days.
I can't even walk down the street without being continually pestered for money.
The kids have been pestering me to buy them new trainers.
Pester power. Pester power.
Pesticide.
Pesticide.
Pester power.
Pesticide.
Pestilence.
Pestilence.
Pestilential.
Pestilential.
Pestle.
Pestle.
Pesto.
Pesto.
Pet.
Pet.
They have two pets, a cat and a dog. We weren't allowed to keep pets at school. Rabbits make good pets. He got bitten by his pet rabbit.
Pet food.
A pet shop.
Don't cry, pet.
Our cat loves being petted.
TV game shows are one of my pet hates.
Petabyte.
Petabyte.
Petaflop. Petaflop.
Petal.
Petal.
Rose petals.
The flower has 7 petals.
Petard.
Petard.
Pet door.
Pet door.
Peter.
Peter.
The road became narrower and eventually petered out.
Public interest in the environment is in danger of petering out.
Peter Pan.
Peter Pan.
He is considered to be the Peter Pan of the music business.
Pethidine.
Pethidine.
Petit bourgeois.
Petit bourgeois.
Petite.
Petite.
Petit bourgeois.
Petite.
Petite.
Petit four.
Petit four.
Petition.
Petition.
A petition against the new road. They wanted me to sign a petition against experiments on animals.
Local residents have drawn up a petition to protest the hospital closure. She is threatening to file a petition for divorce.
Villagers petitioned the local authority to provide better bus services.
Residents are petitioning against the new road.
More and more couples are petitioning for divorce.
Petitioner.
Petitioner.
Petit mal.
Petit mal.
Pet name.
Pet name.
Petrol.
Petrol.
Petri dish.
Petri dish.
Petrified.
Petrified.
I'm petrified of spiders.
He was petrified with fear when he saw the gun.
Petrochemical.
Petrochemical.
The petrochemical industry.
Petrodollars.
Petrodollars.
The flow of petrodollars into the American economy.
Petrol.
Petrol.
Unleaded petrol. Petrol prices. The petrol tank is leaking.
Petrol bomb.
Petrol bomb.
Petroleum.
Petroleum.
Petroleum-based products.
Petroleum jelly.
Petroleum jelly.
Petrol head.
Petrol head.
Petrol station.
Petrol station.
Petrol.
Petrol station.
Pet scan.
Pet scan.
Petticoat.
Petticoat.
Pettifogging.
Pettifogging.
Petting.
Petting.
Petting zoo.
Petting zoo.
Pettish. Pettish.
Petty.
Petty.
Petty squabbles. Petty restrictions.
How can she be so petty?
Petty jealousy and spitefulness.
Some petty bureaucrat wanted all the documents in triplicate. The pettiness of Hollywood.
Petty bourgeois.
Petty bourgeois.
Petty cash.
Petty cash.
Petty larceny.
Petty larceny.
Petty officer.
Petty officer.
Petulant.
Petulant.
Which one? He demanded petulantly.
Petunia.
Petunia.
Pew.
Pew.
Pewter.
Pewter.
A pewter plate.
PG.
PG.
PGCE.
PGCE.
I came to Birmingham to do a PGCE.
PH.
PH.
Soil with a pH of 3.1.
PH.
Phablet.
Phablet.
Phalanx.
Phalanx.
A solid phalanx of policemen blocked the road.
Phallic.
Phallic.
Phallic symbols.
Phalanx. Phallic. Phallus.
Phallus.
Phantasm.
Phantasm.
Phantasmagoria.
Phantasmagoria.
Fantasy.
Fantasy.
Phantom.
Phantom.
A phantom ship.
A phantom pregnancy.
Phantom contracts were used to make the company seem more successful than it was.
The phantom pen stealer strikes again.
Pharaoh.
Pharaoh.
Pharisee.
Pharisee.
Farmer.
Pharma.
Pharmaceutical.
Pharmaceutical.
The pharmaceutical industry. Pharmaceutical products.
Pharmaceuticals.
Pharmaceuticals.
Pharmacist.
Pharmacist.
Pharmacology.
Pharmacology.
Pharmacopoeia.
Pharmacopoeia.
Pharmacy.
Pharmacy.
An all-night pharmacy. Farming. Farming.
Pharyngitis.
Pharyngitis.
Pharynx.
Pharynx.
Phase.
Phase.
A new drug that is in the experimental phase.
The first phase of renovations should be finished by January.
The work will be carried out in phases.
It's just a phase he's going through.
Nizan's views were out of phase with the political climate of the time.
The electrical work will be carried out in phase with the other renovations.
The closure of the regional offices was phased over an 18-month period. A phased withdrawal of military forces.
The new tests will be phased in over the next 2 years.
The subsidy for company cars is to be phased out next year.
Fat.
Fat.
A fat song.
These shoes are just so fat.
PhD.
PhD.
He's got a PhD in biochemistry.
Jacqueline Hope, Ph.D.
Pheasant.
Pheasant.
Phenom.
Phenom.
A 16-year-old guitar phenom.
Phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
The phenomenal success of computer games in recent years. California had experienced a phenomenal growth in population.
He has learned a phenomenal amount in the last 2 years. The results have been phenomenal.
The group have been phenomenally successful in Europe.
Phenomenology.
Phenomenology.
Phenomenon.
Phenomenon.
The growing phenomenon of telecommuting.
Homelessness is not a new phenomenon.
Language is a social and cultural phenomenon.
Pheromone.
Pheromone.
Few.
Phew.
Phew. We finally did it.
File.
File.
A phial of morphine.
Phi beta kappa.
Phi beta kappa.
Phil.
Phil.
Philanderer.
Philanderer.
Philanthropic.
Philanthropic.
Philanthropist.
Philanthropist.
Philanthropy.
Philanthropy.
Philately.
Philately.
File.
File.
A bibliophile.
An Anglophile.
Philharmonic.
Philharmonic. The Berlin Philharmonic.
Philia.
Philia.
Necrophilia.
Francophilia.
Philiac.
Philiac.
A necrophiliac.
Philippic.
Philippic.
Philistine.
Philistine.
When it comes to art, the man's a Philistine.
Philology.
Philology.
Philosopher.
Philosopher.
Plato, Aristotle, and other Greek philosophers.
Philosopher's stone.
Philosopher's stone.
Philosophical.
Philosophical.
The philosophical problem of whether there is free will.
A philosophical argument.
Some old people are philosophical about death.
He was by nature a philosophical person.
Philosophize.
Philosophize.
Philosophy.
Philosophy.
Emma studies philosophy at university.
The philosophy of science.
The philosophy of Aristotle.
The company explained their management philosophy.
The idea that you should treat others as you would like them to treat you is a fine philosophy of life.
Filter.
Filter.
Fishing. Fishing.
Phlebitis.
Phlebitis.
Phlegm.
Phlegm.
Phlegmatic.
Phlegmatic.
The taxi driver, a phlegmatic man in middle age, showed no surprise at this request.
Phlox.
Phlox.
Phobe.
Phobe.
A xenophobe.
A technophobe.
Phobia.
Phobia.
Owen has a phobia about snakes. Some children suffer from school phobia.
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 Claustrophobia.
Aquaphobia.
Anglophobia.
Phobic.
Phobic.
He's a claustrophobic.
I'm a bit agoraphobic.
Phoenix.
Phoenix.
Phone.
Fawn.
Phone.
Phone.
Much of his work is done by phone. Who was that on the phone? I wish Amy would get off the phone.
He put the phone down on me.
I'll phone you this evening.
Why didn't they phone the police?
For information, phone 8279 3772.
Stevie phoned to say that he was going to be late.
I kept phoning her up, asking to meet her.
Tell him to phone back tomorrow. I'll phone in and let them know.
I'll phone the report in tomorrow morning.
She phoned in sick.
There's still time to phone in before the end of the programme.
Phone.
Phone.
Earphones.
A saxophone.
A francophone.
Francophone nations.
Phone book.
Phone book.
Phone booth.
Phone booth.
Phone box. Phone box.
Phone call.
Phone call.
I need to make a quick phone call.
I got a phone call from someone called Mike.
Obscene phone calls.
Phone card. Phone card.
Phone hacking.
Phone hacking.
Phone in.
Phone in.
Phoneme.
Phoneme.
Phonemics.
Phonemics.
Phone sex.
Phone sex.
She claimed the relationship consisted mainly of him calling her up to have phone sex.
Phone tapping.
Phone tapping.
Phonetic.
Phonetic.
A phonetic alphabet.
Phonetic symbols.
Phonetics.
Phonetics.
Phone tree.
Phone tree.
Phony.
Phony.
A phony American accent. He's a complete phony.
Phony war.
Phony war.
Phonic.
Phonic.
Phonics.
Phonics.
Phono.
Phono.
Phonetics. A phonoreceptor.
Phonograph.
Phonograph.
Phonology.
Phonology.
Phony.
Phony.
Phooey.
Phooey.
Phosgene.
Phosgene.
Phosphate.
Phosphate.
Phosphorescent.
Phosphorescent.
A strange phosphorescent light.
Phosphorescence.
Phosphorescence.
Phosphorus.
Phosphorus.
Phosphoric acid.
Photo.
Photo.
I'll send Mom a photo of Sammy. Can you take a photo of me and Rachel?
Photo.
Photo.
Photosensitive paper. Photojournalism.
Photobombing. Photobombing.
Photo booth.
Photo booth.
Photocall.
Photocall.
Photocopier.
Photocopier.
Photocopy.
Photocopy.
I sent him the original document, not a photocopy.
Leave the papers with me and I'll get them photocopied. Could you do some photocopying for me tomorrow?
Photoelectric.
Photoelectric.
Photoelectric cell.
Photoelectric cell.
Photo finish.
Photo finish.
Photofit.
Photofit.
Photogenic.
Photogenic.
Helen is very photogenic.
Photograph.
Photograph.
A colour photograph.
A black and white photograph.
I wish I had a photograph of Thomas.
He took a photograph of the hotel.
Tim was looking through an old photograph album.
Did you see Leo's photograph in the newspaper?
Kate agreed to let me photograph her.
He stood by the tree to be photographed.
Celia does not photograph well.